At the end of March, the world was met with a staggering loss. Many of us are still reeling from it. A number of people feel rudderless, unsure of what they should or even can do next. Wednesday at 10:35 a.m. on Crunchyroll, which you can use free for 30 days at crunchyroll.com/basement. I still can't believe Konosuba's gone. But I've found ways to cope. One of those ways is reading Konosuba's light novels, the second volume of which just dropped on Kadokawa's ebook store, BookWalker. And if you sign up for a new account and use the promo code BASEMENT to get 600 yen off your order, you can read either volume for just $2. But that's not all. If you pick up volume 2, hopefully using this code, before April 30th, you'll be entered to win one of 3 pairs of stolen pantsu autographed by the series author Natsume Akatsuki. For some reason, they wouldn't send the pantsu for Yazi or I to model, so here's that t-shirt from the last contest again. You could also win a poster signed by the show's cast, but let's be real here, you want those pantsu. And if you want those pantsu cheap, you should know that the promo code BASEMENT will only work for new accounts created after March 21st. But maybe you miss Konosuba and you think that reading is for nerds. That's cool, I get that, which is why I've compiled this list of 5 incredible comedy anime that probably flew under your radar. I mean, you're probably just gonna watch Gintama, but maybe when you run out of that in a year or two, you can watch these, 5 pretty funny anime that you haven't watched probably, but I think you should watch them because you miss Konosuba. Note to self, make sure to put a better title in when you finish the video. And note to everyone else, I'll put links in the description for all of these shows if you want to find them in a hurry. We love Konosuba for how it smartly skewers RPG tropes, but it's far from the only comedy anime to take a crack at that. In fact, most comedy anime have done the whole RPG parody thing at one point or another to, let's be real here, widely varying degrees of success. For all of the garbage, though, there are a few really solid RPG parody anime out there, and of those, one of my all-time favorites is Senyuu, short for Senshi to Yuusha, or Soldier and Hero, a short anime, each episode clocking in at just 5 minutes long, that reimagines the RPG party as a twisted comedy duo. The Soldier and Hero from which Senyuu draws its title are essentially send-ups of old-school and modern JRPG protagonist archetypes. The hero, Alba, is every Dragon Quest lead ever, a naive, starry-eyed moron who, as the player avatar, mostly just stands around making observations. The Soldier, meanwhile, is a blend of every fashion mistake that Tetsuya Nomura ever tried to pass off as a character design. In particular, his hair and ridiculous sword are clear nods to Cloud Strife. Where the modern RPG hero is a brooding, moody badass, the Soldier is a cold, unfeeling psychopath who delights in watching the hero suffer. And he's in luck because Alba suffers a lot, if not at the Soldier's own hands, then as a result of the patent absurdity of the world they live in. Senyuu follows a very typical RPG plot. The Demon King who was defeated 1,000 years ago has returned, so the king sends forth the ancient hero's descendants to defeat him once again. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to track genealogy across a millennium, so the kingdom ends up with over 70 different heroes, mostly picked based on how they kinda look like that guy from 1,000 years ago, all competing to defeat the Demon King and earn the king's big reward, which creates a lot of long queues at low-level questing areas, among other big problems. A lot of Senyuu's humor comes from the absurd clash between real-world rules and fantasy world logic. The world is portrayed as this wild fantasy frontier full of roaming monsters and magic, but it has an omnipresent and highly effective police force that everyone, demon lords included, obeys without question. Senyuu doesn't really have much in the way of deeper meaning or overarching plot to keep you hooked, but the short format means that it doesn't really need that. Instead of worrying about what makes sense for the narrative, it can focus simply on what's funny. And it is funny, often uproariously so. It says a lot when a show can consistently make you laugh with its opening narration alone. That said, the short format also means that it won't distract you from the lack of Konosuba in your life for long. You can finish the whole series in just 2 hours, which fits nicely into the 30-day free trial you can get with crunchyroll.com/basement, but you may need something a bit longer to feel fully satisfied. At 69 episodes long, Yakitate Japan certainly fits the bill on that front, and considering that it's literally about making bread, you know that it has to be pretty damn funny to make it to 3 whole cours. If you'll permit me to be a super typical anime reviewer for a second, Yakitate Japan is a deconstruction of a certain type of shonen battle series, specifically the kind that exists for the sole purpose of selling toys. The formula for these shows is pretty simple. Take whatever you want to sell, be it tops, cards, or transforming marbles, figure out how kids could use those things to fight, add a layer of nonsense magical powers to make things nominally more exciting, and then set up a bunch of random tournaments so that people can fight and stuff can happen. Throw in one plucky young kid with big dreams and a wacky supporting cast, and you've got yourself an instant anime hit. Yakitate Japan subverts this subgenre by showing that its tropes can be used to make kids watch literally anything, and it works shockingly well. The show is funny as heck, tossing out pop culture parodies left and right, covering subject matter as broad as 2001: A Space Odyssey, Street Fighter, and Pepsi Man, but it's also a genuinely exciting battle shonen series that can be enjoyed just as seriously as something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Beyblade. The protagonist, Azuma Kazuma, is a young baking prodigy whose dream is to one day invent a bread that is uniquely Japanese. He will call this bread Japan because this series loves its puns. To attain this goal, he applies to work at Tokyo's most competitive bakery, Pantasia. Their grueling multi-day screening process for new hires is the first of many hard battles that he will need to fight in his quest to create Japan and modernize the Japanese baking industry. Kazuma is already something of an idiot savant when it comes to baking, but his skill is further enhanced by a latent special ability. He possesses the legendary solar hands. That is to say, he has abnormally warm hands, which means that yeast ferments slightly faster when he needs it. The show never stops reminding you what a big deal this is. And of course, Azuma comes up against a number of opponents with their own equally formidable special talents, like having really flexible fingers. Yakitate Japan gets a lot of mileage out of its fantastic cast of characters, its silly premise, and its endless supply of bad puns, which basically necessitate watching the show in Japanese, but what ties the whole thing together and really makes it work are the reactions. Obviously, it's pretty difficult to convey taste through animation, so in lieu of advancements in smell-o-vision technology, Yakitate Japan opts to use visual metaphor. Whenever someone in this show eats delicious bread, things get wild. The taste of the bread might take them to the surface of the moon, or force them to matrix dodge flying melons, and these gags only get more ridiculous as the series goes on. If you've seen Food Wars Shokugeki no Soma, that will give you some idea of what these reactions are like, except Yakitate makes puns out of the ingredients instead of focusing on fan service. And while there's nothing wrong with a bit of TNA, I'm happy to say that I can recommend Yakitate Japan as a great comedy for weebs of all ages. So any kids in the audience should go watch that on Crunchyroll or Nozomi Entertainment's YouTube channel, like right now, because this list is about to get a bit risque. In the far future, nuclear war has reduced Japan to a blazing hot wasteland, where the last traces of humanity attempt to eke out a meager existence among the dunes of the Great Kanto Desert. In this harsh world, only a real hard bastard can survive and thrive, and the hardest bastard of them all is Tsunabozu, or Desert Punk. Desert Punk follows the exploits of Kanta Mizuno, or Desert Punk, a mercenary who has never failed a mission in his life. We're introduced to him right as he breaks this perfect record, all because of one of the other hardest bastards in the Great Kanto Desert, Junko, a rival mercenary who uses every weapon at her disposal, her bazookas included, to finish a mission. Which makes her a dangerous adversary for Kanta because he's kind of, well, an idiot, at least when it comes to women. When he's not thinking about sex, he's a formidable mercenary who uses clever trickery and an arsenal of powerful weapons to more than earn his nickname, the Demon of the Desert. Desert Punk has a bit more in the way of a story compared to the rest of the entries on this list. It is very much interested in telling a serious tale about life after the end of life as we know it. It's funny, very, very funny, but mostly as a result of its twisted outlook on humanity. The core idea of the series, the one that drives both the world building and the comedy, is that being a jerk is human nature, and that the apocalypse will ultimately just create selective pressures that reward assholes. Not monsters, mind you. The megalomaniacs, psychopaths, and other evil people in this world are frequently brought to justice, just dicks. People who look out for number one first and maintain the bare minimum level of civility required to avoid catching a bullet from someone you've pissed off. Pretty much everyone in the Great Kanto Desert is a jerk, focused solely on attaining short-term gains at the cost of the long-term well-being of others and even themselves. And because of this, humanity continually passes up pretty much every opportunity that it might have to recover from the nuclear holocaust. As you can probably guess from that, this series tends toward pretty dark humor. It's not uncommon for death or tragedy to come as the punchline of a joke, although the anime is just as willing to devolve into slapstick and parody when the mood strikes, often to hilarious effect. Whenever Desert Punk's rival Rain Spider is on screen, you know you're in for a good time. This show has a dub courtesy of Funimation, who also host it for streaming if you're interested in checking it out, and all things considered, it's pretty strong. The humor in the dub skews a bit more rude and crude than the original Japanese, but it suits the series well and is damn funny. And that's important for a comedy anime, because for a lot of people, it can be hard to enjoy humor in a foreign language. Subtitles can do terrible things to comedic timing and distract from funny visual gags, and that's to say nothing of how cultural context and wordplay affect comedy. Arcada talked about this recently in the follow-up to his Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun review, and I highly recommend giving that a watch. But not as much as I recommend this next anime and its dub in particular. You're probably aware of Golden Boy, or at least of the memes that it spawned, but there's a decent chance that you haven't bothered to actually watch the whole thing, and you need to correct that, like, now. Now, technically this placement breaks my one rule for writing these lists, which is to highlight shows with less than 100,000 members on MAL, but I'm willing to make an exception for Golden Boy because it is a truly exceptional anime, and until literally everyone has seen it, I will consider it to be criminally obscure. It's only 6 episodes long, and all of them in both sub and the incredible dub are up on Crunchyroll, so you've really got no excuse. Well, unless you're a kid, because this show gets pretty damn lewd. Go watch Yakitate Japan instead, if that's the case. The only thing that a lot of people recognize Golden Boy for is,
"So, how do you like my swimming?"
And don't get me wrong, that is a great gag, but it's just one of dozens of brilliant, quotable moments from this show. I don't think that there's any one anime that I've quoted more with my friends, and until "the wild beast inside of you has awakened the wild beast inside of me" is as instantly recognizable as "I'll take a potato chip and eat it," I will not be satisfied. So, now you know that I love this show enough to base a cult around it, but I've yet to tell you what it's actually about. Kentaro Oe is a freeder, that is, an underemployed working-age adult who dropped out of Tokyo University's law school right before graduation and now wanders Japan, taking odd jobs to learn as much as he can about the world. And meet beautiful women, that's also a priority. In each episode of Golden Boy, Kentaro finds himself in a new job working alongside or under some sort of boom anime babe. Some of these girls think he's cute, others dismiss him as a loser, but regardless of where they start, by the end of each episode, they're in love with him and he's gone. Because Kentaro is driven by a simple philosophy. Life is study. If he's not learning something new, he's wasting his life. And by the time he's good enough at any job to impress a girl, he's got very little left to learn about it. Which is not to say that he doesn't like girls. Kentaro is, much like Kazuma from Konosuba, a shameless pervert. He lusts after just about every woman he meets, no matter how fatal that attraction might prove to be, and the show wrings a lot of humor out of his sex-craved antics and weird kinks. But it manages to make that crude humor charming rather than shocking because it is so earnest in its execution. Kentaro isn't just a perv because it's funny, his unreserved lust is an integral part of what his character represents. It's another side of his obsession with learning, an unquenchable passion for living life, and he sees no reason to be ashamed of that. Kintaro's very existence represents a rejection of repressive Japanese social norms. Kintaro is basically everything that Japan tells its youth they shouldn't be. A dropout with no clear career goals and no sense of social obligation. Yet his freewheeling lifestyle brings him happiness and success, and it improves the lives of pretty much everyone he meets. You could say that he's a bit of a Gary Stu, always trying to do the right thing and always succeeding eventually at his goals, but as a comedic protagonist, he's allowed to be. He exists to shake up the world in funny ways and catalyze the growth of other characters around him, while he just goes through the arc of learning about a new job. The series follows a simple formula that leaves it open to tell pretty much any one-off story it might feel like telling. One episode sees Kintaro working for a corrupt politician while falling for the advances of his bored, manipulative daughter, while the next pits him and his adorable pedal bike in an insane downhill race against a domineering motorcycle babe with a literal lust for speed. The plot never really takes any crazy turns. You'd know from the get-go that every episode will end with Kintaro saving the day and getting the girl, but it doesn't really need to. This show is so damn funny that the jokes alone will keep you going all the way to its brilliant anime original conclusion, which is as close to perfect as episodes of anime get, so I won't spoil it here. The writing and acting in Golden Boy is grade A stuff, but the animation is on a whole other level. As a 6-episode OVA, the show doesn't have to worry about the tight constraints of a TV budget or a TV time frame, and is free to go all in on any visual gag that its animators might dream up. If you're a fan of what Konosuba does with its visual comedy, Golden Boy will blow you away. They spare no expense when it comes to selling a joke, and it pays off time and time again. But you don't need a huge budget to create great animated comedy, or even great visual comedy. With a bit of creativity and a willingness to say fuck it, you can get a hell of a lot out of very little. Sakigake, Cromartie High School, financed with loose change from between the cushions of Production IG's break room couch and put together in between pre-production meetings for Standalone Complex, the second gig, is cheap as hell. Its frame rate is barely competitive with most PowerPoint presentations, and even at a rate of 4 new drawings a minute, its drawings can be wonky as hell. It is also, without question, the funniest anime ever made. This show doesn't just work within the restrictions of its budget, it embraces them and uses the jankiness as a stylistic element that fuels the comedy. Sometimes when the animators can't figure out how to fit a character into the frame, they just draw them sitting on the roof. Other times they'll leave in stupid animation glitches like a character's ear sliding along the side of his face just because they're funny to look at. By unabashedly using these shortcuts and cheats, Cromartie High School manages to cram as many fantastic sight gags into 10 minutes as Konosuba does into 20, all at a fraction of the cost. And it pulled this off a full decade before Trigger saved anime with Inferno Cop. Sakigake Cromartie High School is a parody of the Yankee or delinquent manga that were popular in the 70s and 80s in Japan. It likely borrows its name from Sakigake Otokojuku, but the subject matter and art style are a broad pastiche of the genre, with a lot of pop culture jokes mixed in for flavor. The show follows a normal, mild-mannered, and reasonably intelligent high school student named Takashi Kameyama, who just happens to be enrolled at Tokyo's worst school for thugs and delinquents, Cromartie High School. How did Kameyama end up in this sorry state? If you want to find out, read the manga. No, seriously, the words "read the manga" are all the backstory the anime ever gives us. They leave a crucial and pretty funny in its own right part of the story out entirely, seemingly because, and I'm just speculating here, they would have needed to draw new backgrounds to show it. Whatever the reason, they were forced to drop a really funny joke, but in lieu of that, they turned their production shortcoming into an even funnier joke in itself. It's not unlike the meta humor of Gintama. In fact, the shows share a producer, but it came out 3 years earlier, and it's content to let these budget gags pass instead of dwelling on them. Cromartie High School rarely ever draws a joke out, in fact, because it always has a funnier one that it wants to tell next. Kameyama's overzealous classmate, Hayashida, gets him elected as the de facto boss of all of the thugs in his grade, operating on the logic that if you see a rabbit chilling with a bunch of lions, you think, that's gotta be one badass rabbit. and Kamiyama vows to use his powers as a delinquent boss to clean up the school and eventually all of Japan. But he's got some crazy obstacles in his way. His other schoolmates include a gorilla, Freddie Mercury on a horse, and a perfectly normal guy who has nothing wrong with him and is just really nice. And that's just what's established within the first 2 episodes. As the series goes on, Kamiyama and his crew contend with rival schools, terrorists, and stand-up comedians, and they react to all of it with the same perfect deadpan expressions. If I had to point to just one thing that makes Cromartie High School work as well as it does, it would have to be the reaction shots. Half of the joke of the series is that it's really funny when highly detailed, JoJo-esque characters have over-the-top reactions to stupid bullshit. This is perfect comedy. It actually never gets old. Of course, the show has a lot more going for it than just hilariously stoic reaction images. The writing is on point 100% of the time, and the dialogue delivery in both English and Japanese is absolutely impeccable. Almost every spoken line is comic gold. The sound mixing is also fantastic. From the whir of Hayashida's ears slowly clicking into place to the soft clacking as the thug who tried to intimidate Kamiyama by eating his pencils pukes them up in the corner, every gag is accompanied by a sound effect that's just perfect. When Cromartie High School wants to make you laugh, it will use every tool at its disposal: funny edits, funny camera movements, snappy motion tweens, or pitch-perfect goofy line delivery to do it. And it will get that laugh. I cannot recommend this show enough. Unfortunately, actually watching it can be a little difficult. As of this recording, Cromartie High School isn't available to stream on any legal service, but you can buy the DVD set from Discotek Media via Amazon, and while you're doing that, you can pick up the live-action movie, which is also fantastic. And while I know physical media is dead and all, it's totally worth it. I have never seen a funnier anime in my life, and I watch a lot of funny anime. Actually, comedy is probably my favorite genre right after Sad Things About Dead Little Girls, and I've got 2 or 3 more lists worth of old and obscure comedy shows left to recommend. So if you'd like to see more comedy lists like this in the future, leave a comment below and let me know, and also hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to make sure that you actually see them when they go up. And please share your own comedy recommendations in the comments as well. The world could always use more laughter. And your wall could always use more signed pantsu, so enter yourself to win some by getting the Konosuba Volume 2 ebook from BookWalker.com. And remember to use the promo code BASEMENT at checkout to get 600 yen off your order and enter the contest for just $2. Or you can use that code to buy anything else on the store, which unfortunately does not include Cromartie High School. God damn it, that would have been a perfect shill. Well, at least I have my wonderful patrons to help make up for that horrible shilling miscalculation, so thanks to all of you for helping to keep me afloat. If you're looking for even more anime to fill the Konosuba-shaped void in your heart, then check out this list of 5 fantastic fantasy anime you probably missed. Or if you want to hear me talk about Konosuba itself and why it's such a damn good comedy anime, then check out this analysis of the second opening. But if you decide that you want to go watch some comedy anime right now, then I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.